now?
Are we live? I think we're live.
I don't see a thing that says live on my phone.
Yeah, but
There it
there
is.
it is. Boom.
We're live.
We are now live on YouTube as Get Valiant. This is, of course, episode number 67, which,
67.
yeah, that's pretty cool. Not really like a milestone or anything, but I'm not going to complain. Um, I don't know. It's crazy that we've gone as long as we have.
We have
Uh,
gone a long time doing this, man.
Yeah. No books. No books for us to review today. We're oddly caught up because we've actually been doing weekly episodes. Um, and this is a no book week from Valiant. I think a lot of people have said many a time that we would much rather get, multiple one book weeks instead of some 2 and 3 book weeks and then a no book week. So, eh, I would agree with that, definitely, but I don't know.
I agree with it too, and it's just a drag because I always feel like, and I'm sure that Valiant knows some kind of science around why they do this, but I always think like, wouldn't it be best to have something new available on the shelf every single week to keep new and potential returning customers there to show up at a comic book shop and be like, hey, where's that latest Valiant offering? Not even a
Yeah.
trade paperback or anything today, So
Yeah.
it's a fucking drag, I don't understand that kind of like the science behind all that shit. I'm sure there's not really any science, but Valiant, just put a book out every week, man. Come on, give the fans something to go to the comic book shop for, because I didn't even go to the shop. So because of Valiant, I didn't buy anybody else's books either. So it's their fault that the whole industry is crumbling right before our eyes, man.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Um, oh man. So what we kind of did was try to get some questions from people since we don't have any books to talk about. Um, One thing that we tried out last time was talking some non-Valiant. We talked a little bit about Invincible, didn't get too much into it, especially considering how long-term a series that is. So we might try to do a little bit of that later. But we also wanted to kind of get into some questions. I'm not sure. Let me. Sorry, give me a second here. Unprepared, man. Well, you've got questions. I just wanted to kind of see if actually, I haven't pulled up whether or not we actually have anybody watching to see if we answer the questions that they ask, but I suppose they could watch later like some kind of noob.
If they're not watching live, they're gonna miss out on that special feeling of us telling the world their question and then answering it. So
Yeah,
come on, people, get with the program. But
there's no substitute.
there is none. Twitter user Dallas Spicer had a few questions. One of which I knew that we were going to talk about, and that is, what are our thoughts on War returning to Earth with issue 14 of his series? A good question to ask.
Agreed.
And, I kind of think it's about time. I know that the way that it was worded confused a few people, like on the actual article that came out. A few people thought that maybe the series was ending.
Yeah, which I didn't get.
Huh?
I didn't get that from that
A
article at all,
couple
so I didn't
people
really
I read
understand.
I read like a posting on like Valiant fans. I think I saw one on Twitter also where people were like, "Oh, is the series ending?" Because it's just like it's just listed as like a new jumping on point,
Yeah,
or like maybe like adventure is over. He's going back to Earth in time for
which is
um,
not a surprise.
which is not a surprise. Yeah, I feel like they had to do it, and honestly, I'm okay with it. Because I feel like um, the time on the alien planet has kind of run its course. And it looks like there's going to be some badass dudes showing up to kind of either send Arik back in, or Arik is going to be put in a spot where he realizes he's not wanted or needed on Gorin, and he's going to go home. And we're going to finally get some answers as to why he left Earth in the first place. I haven't thought too much about what it could have been. I assume that somehow his wife is involved. Sana, maybe she's dead, or maybe something else has happened to her. But I think like it's about time we get him back on Earth. It works to have Exo Manowar out in space, But at the same time, I feel like this storyline is just kind of dragged a little bit. So I think a change of scenery is kind of needed. I'm ready for it. How about you?
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely ready for him to get back on Earth and get back to interacting with other characters. Not that like he spent a crazy amount of time, interacting with other characters in the Venditti run, but I don't know, it feels like there's more impact when the stories are happening on Earth. Now, obviously, whether the stories are happening on Planet Gorin or Planet Earth, it's all fictional. It's a fictional version of Earth, but still, like, there's something about the story being set on Earth that it feels like it has more impact. It feels like it matters more. Um, as much as the political stuff going on in EXO right now is cool, and I mean it's well written, it's not really grabbing me. I don't really care that much. I don't know. It just seems like politics, and I'm not really that into politics that actually affect me, much less politics on a planet that doesn't exist. So it's been kind of tough. I don't know. But I mean, I've said on previous episodes that this run of EXO is not really my cup of tea. This isn't really doing it for me. So, um, yeah, I mean, I know that there are a lot of people really loving this series, and that's great. I do hope it continues, and I really hope that because I mean, even though it's going to be collected in like 4 trades, we've essentially gotten one story so far out of Excel. We haven't even gotten to the end of that one story. So him coming back to Earth, excuse me, is like basically the beginning of the second arc in this book. You know what I mean? Because we basically had a year-long story that's still wrapping up, and then we'll finally get something new. So in that regard, I'm really excited to see where this goes. I know I have loved a lot of things from Kint in the past, so even though this current arc isn't my number one favorite thing going on, I still have a lot of high hopes and expectations for what could come when Arc does get back to Earth.
This story, you know, we had commented on this on our Get Valiant page on Facebook. It really feels to me like they wrote this almost like knowing that there's going to be a deluxe edition coming out of this, because you could very easily do the free comic book day issue and 13, maybe 14 issues of this under one volume. And it does seem like if you did it that way, it does kind of capture all of Auric on Gorin, and then the next volume would be, his new adventures back on Earth. And I do agree, though, that like he does kind of need to be there. The interactions with other characters are kind of what we need, because like a lot of these characters that are on Gorin are pretty much like throwaway characters. I mean, they have no lasting value really within the Valiant universe. Like a lot of these like little generals and things like that he talks to, I just don't see them showing up like 5 years from now, or anyone caring like a year from now, even maybe. Maybe these bounty hunters that showed up in issue 10, they might change the course of that. But for the most part, I mean, I want to see him interact with the other Valiant superhero characters, or superpowered characters for that matter. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Auric plays into Harbinger War 2, because normally he doesn't even like step foot in like anything with the Psiots. So seeing how he gets involved in this is actually really like interesting. Definitely time for him to get back.
Okay, so I'm going to use something that you just said as a segue. We're going to move on from EXO. We can come back to it later if necessary, since we don't have books to talk about, so we can just ramble about whatever. Anyway, one of the things that you were saying is that it seems like a lot of these characters in this current series, we're probably not going to see a lot of them moving forward. And that just reminds me of the fact that, I mean, honestly, there are tons of characters from other series that we just don't see anymore. And we're finally getting, in a thing that was released today, an article that was released today, the next arc of Ninja K, written by Christos Gage, who we did interview on a previous episode. Definitely recommend going and listening to that because he is awesome. But he is going to be doing, now I can't even remember the name of the team that Ninjak is forming. It's like him and Livewire. I don't even remember who it all is. Yeah, Punk Mambo, Dr. Mirage.
Ginger,
yeah. So it's almost a new Unity situation going on, which is really cool. I love Ninjak and Livewire teaming up. I know Christos had said that he definitely was going to work on and play around with the Colin and Amanda um, relationship that's been going on. And then the other cool thing, because we haven't seen Dr. Mirage in a while. Punk Mambo has only been here around a little bit in Rapture, and now she's in Bloodshot Salvation. But coming up in that arc is also going to be the Dying One, Kosti the Deathless, Linton March, and Ultimo. And these are all characters that have appeared in previous series and don't really see them. We've talked quite a bit, actually, about how we really liked a lot of the characters that came out of the Red Brigade, but curious where we're going to see them again. So it's cool that we're going to. I don't know. I got so crazy excited when I read that article because I'm absolutely jacked on Ninja K right now. So I could probably continue talking for a very long time. What did you think about that article?
I was way excited, and I was the one that was like, Eric, you got to read the preview. We don't, Eric and I actually try not to read previews. We try not to discuss them on here. We don't really talk about the solicitations too much either, just because Eric and I do try to go into things as fresh as we can. But I did glimpse at the solicitations based on Chris Amundsen, who had asked a question about the team in that book in Ninja K6. And for one, I know I've talked
by
about
the way,
this.
it's the Coalition. Chris
Coalition.
from Calgary. You just mentioned that. Anyway, so you were talking to Moose.
Anyway, so I was talking to Chris about it. One of the things that got me really excited about this is that I'm a huge fan of Robert Venditti's Wrath of the Eternal Warrior. It was just an awesome
underrated
14-issue series. And in that storyline, there's a story called Labyrinth. And Labyrinth is basically about the Dying One and how he's a character who, when he dies, he goes to a different body. Not necessarily born again as a baby, but like his consciousness just goes to a different body, just randomly somewhere else. And pretty much jealous of how Galad, when he dies, goes to where he goes and then returns to his own body. He picks up from where he left off. And the Labyrinth is set up to test Galad and to see if he can figure out any way on how he does this. And it's been one of those characters where I'm like, ton of potential, super cool. How do we get that guy back in the Valiant universe again? And then I know that a lot of people feel really good about the United from Unity. And Ultimo comes from that. Linton March, he shows up in the first issue of the first Death-Defying Dr. Mirage series. He's the guy who sends Shen on her way to, try to get that demon that he's bonded to released from him. So honestly, like, just a cool story, cool team. It's really exciting to see some of these characters again, because one thing we discussed, or the week prior, but Valiant has a bit of a villains issue where you don't see a lot of people show up, and if they do, they get killed. And it's just like, this is great, man. Like, there's a huge universe of characters that we don't get to see enough of, and the way that things work sometimes, it's just like, we might not see Harada for like another year, and who knows when we'll see Master Dark. So it's great to see these characters. I'm glad that Chris Gage has like an idea of like what he's going to do with these characters.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, I'm pumped for like Ninja K. I mean, like, this book just seems awesome. And when I read that part of the preview, I was just like, man, that's just awesome, man. Like, and it seems like also, obviously, like, Livewire is playing a bigger part in the universe. Coming off of Secret Weapons, she's going to show up in Ninjak obviously a lot. They have a bond. But honestly, what's really cool is them showing more of Punk Mambo.
Yeah.
Because Punk Mambo is just like, she's starting to show up in a lot of books too. So it's just really cool to see these characters getting some life. Too many characters out there that aren't getting used. They only put out 6 or 7 books. There's not too much they can do if they want to, like, start rotating through characters really fast. But this is a start, man. And I think it looks like a really good start.
Well, I know that I've definitely seen fans who have expressed that they would really like to get more of a shared universe feel again. I think Bloodshot Reborn was very self-contained. USA had Ninjak in it, and Livewire and Ginger, and a few other characters, but they were kind of in the background, really. So even then, it didn't really feel like it was bringing in a lot of the other characters. Um, and then, yeah, we don't have a Unity book anymore. EXO is off planet. Um, it seems like everybody's kind of been doing their own thing for a long time, and I really feel like the Ninja K title is kind of, well, not only that, Bloodshot Salvation too, because they're bringing in Punk Mambo. They're talking about going into this next arc. When he goes to the dead side, we're going to get Ninjak and Shadow Man and some other characters as well. Maybe Dr. Mirage was going to be in that. I don't remember for sure, but yeah, I mean, it's really cool that we're getting more of that from these books. Bloodshot is going to feature more big name characters in the Valiant universe than just Bloodshot. Same for Ninja K. I would love for that to be the case in EXO when he does come back to Earth. Like you said, he doesn't normally interact with the Psyops. So if in the lead up to Harbinger Wars 2, we see him interacting with either the Renegades or Harada or any of that kind of stuff, that would be awesome. Oh, okay. Free form thought, whatever. We can go back to topics as needed, but that just reminded me, talking about Harada, that Miko Swayan posted he's working with Josh Dysart, and we all have heard little rumblings here and there that there would be something coming from Dysart, nothing really set in stone, and I'm really excited to see what this is going to be. The fact that he's working with Miko, and I think I already loved Miko back when he started working on Bloodshot Reborn and even before that, but he's leveled up since then. So seeing what he's going to be able to do with whatever Dicer comes up with is really exciting. That's going to be crazy.
Yeah,
I want to give a shout out too. Sorry, I keep interrupting you, but we got what is it? David Bales and Chris Amundsen and Travis Williams. So got some people hanging out in the chat. That's awesome. Hello, everybody. Ask questions, interact with us. We're totally cool. Anyway, yeah. I think that we're going to get some more Imperium-based stuff. That seems like the logical thing for Dicer to do. What about you?
Yeah, it seems like it would be the thing because he had sent us a message, I think, like the day after our episode that we released that had Imperium 16 discussion on it, telling us that there was going to be a miniseries. I think he told all the podcasts, that kind of stuff, and people that were really close with him. And I know that a lot of people have started asking about when we were going to get an Imperium hardcover. And Dinesh has kind of been saying that, oh, we'll get it when we wrap up the series, like when we do the finale. So there's definitely going to be something else out there. I guess not definitely, but I mean, it may not be called Imperium, but there's going to be something that's going to move those characters along. And hopefully that's what it is. I mean, we all like Dysart. Everybody has really fun thoughts and feelings about his work in Imperium. So, that could be one of the big things that they end up announcing this year when they do their Summer of Valiant discussion or whatever the next publishing initiative is. Hopefully that's what it is. I mean, that it'd be a good thing to have this year. I mean, this could be a really strong year. And to kind of move along, there was another question asked on Twitter. This one was also from Dallas Spicer. And the question was, what does a successful 2018 look like for Valiant? Like, what would Valiant need to have a big, successful year, do you think?
You're like asking me? I thought you were just going to answer it.
Both of us are going to answer, man. We're both going to give our thoughts.
Fine. Okay, so to me, the number one thing is, and I'm sure that they're looking at this too, is selling more copies of each issue. And I feel like a part of the reason why we're getting less books now than we were a couple of years ago is probably because they're trying to put more focus on each individual book. They've always tried to keep the line lean as possible. Still put out a good variety of books, but try to keep enough focus on each title that none of them get lost in the shuffle. And I think that that's a smart way to go. it's tough to know whether it's the right decision. Um, Chris Amundsen says that Dinesh is the master of misdirection. So who knows what's coming from Dice Art or any of them, because he does say some ridiculous stuff.
Yep.
But a successful 2018. Here's another thing. This is actually a really good jumping point into another discussion, and we can talk more about what 2018 could or should hold, depending on how you want to look at it. But Dinesh is also teasing a recoloring of the cover from Unity, or a Unity cover. Am I right about that? I don't know anything about 90s Valiant. What was
first
that?
8 covers. So there's 16 books that spread out, and also like the bookends on it. And the 8 books that were part of the ongoings were done by Frank Miller. He did the cover art, and then Walt Simonson did the back end 8 issues. So yeah, if you go into Dinesh's Twitter account, you'll see a really nice image of those covers recolored by Paul Mounts, and they look pretty good. I mean, I always like those covers. I'm a Frank Miller fan, so I liked them anyway. I was okay with the coloring, but the new coloring does kind of pop. Obviously, I guess obviously to me, but there's going to be a Unity collection, and I think it's definitely probably the most like requested thing I hear people say when it comes to the older material. I mean, a lot of people want the older material. I think Valiant needs to do something to get those books selling for them too, because they have a backlog. They have like 1,000 issues from the 1990s, and I don't know, a couple hundred from Acclaim's terrible era, volume 2. But
reprint all of those.
But the thing is, like, a lot of those books are either hard to find, or the middle of those series are all like in quarter bins because there's so many of them. But you still got to find a way to make money off those characters. So I hope Valiant in 2018 does a little bit more with reprinting that backlog, because if you think about like the first appearances of these characters, the first appearance of the Renegades, the first appearance of, Harada or Bloodshot, Ninjak, a lot of these things, they're not really collected in anything that Valiant's currently putting out. There's some out of print Valiant Masters. There's an Exo Manowar omnibus that I'm pretty sure is out of press too. You got, if you have all these characters, and they're magnificent characters, we love these characters and all, but like, what about the first appearances? There's no access to them unless you either pay for a $40 back issue, like in the case of like Eternal Warrior 4, or maybe pony up $100 for like Harbinger 1. It just kind of stinks a little bit, like thinking that like these books aren't very accessible to like new readers because they got in too late, and the speculation market has already moved in and picked up as many issues as they can. So, comic companies have the first appearances available. You can go and get a book that has the first Superman. You can get a book with the first Spider-Man. They're very easily to get. I think like that's something that Valiant should look into this year, is just like making it accessible to get some of those characters. Obviously, they can reprint books that have the gold key trio because they've been doing it. I mean, they show up in Archer and Armstrong. Solar shows up in it. The Exo Manowar omnibus has Turok and Solar in it. So, I mean, there's ways to do it. They're probably just not allowed to like promote it too much. And I know that the quality isn't like as high as it should be, compared to everything else that they put out. They probably don't have like original art or film reels of the art. Find ways to do that, I think, because they've got a lot of back issues. They've got a whole catalog, and with a fan base this dedicated, people that buy issues and buy trades and buy deluxe editions, I just feel like that's money being left on the table. But that's just my thoughts on it.
No, I completely agree. I think that reprinting Unity
for like the first year of any of those books, and you don't have to price them crazy, if that need be, if you just want to sell them. But I feel like they need to do something with that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, not only reprinting Unity is a good idea, but like you said, we don't have a lot of these first appearances. There was a Bloodshot, hardcover of some of the older material, but I think that was only like the first 8 issues. It'd be nice to get the rest of that 50 issue run or 51 issue run collected. Same with the entire Eternal Warrior run and Rai and I mean, it just would be really nice to actually be able to, because that to me is going to be a lot more accessible for me to go back and read the 90s stuff. Like, I don't want to have to literally go and hunt down every single floppy issue just in order to be able to read the 90s stuff. I have all the Bloodshot stuff, but again, I mean, it's just not really that accessible. So to me, and buying that Bloodshot hardcover isn't that appealing to me because I would only be getting those first 8 issues. It doesn't really give me what I would consider to be a very significant portion of the run. If it was 12, 16 issues, I would be a lot more likely to pick that up. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But I do think that there's, like you said, there's something to be said about the fact that you can go out and buy a collection with Batman's first appearance, Spider-Man, Superman, et cetera, et cetera. But you can't go out and buy a collection with Bloodshot's first appearance. And I think that getting a lot of that stuff out there is going to fuel the secondary market, and I think it'll fuel the primary market with people actually getting into the current comics.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, the thing is, like, you can get like a trade paperback that Valiant put out, like the old Valiant put out like 25 years ago, that shows that stuff. But it's also one that's like a smattering of just first appearances of like characters that they don't even use anymore. So I mean, like VEI, Valiant, current Valiant, I mean, they need to do something, I think, to get these characters out. Not just these old trades that you might be able to find on eBay covered in dust or beat the shit out of. Like, give me something new and nice.
So, what other questions did we get? We got a bunch of them from a couple individuals I know.
Joe Gree was asking about like conventions, maybe about like which ones we were going to be doing.
We probably shouldn't talk about that because I don't want to cry on camera.
You don't have anything planned this year, like up in Minnesota?
I might get to go to Albert Lee, Minnesota, which no one has ever heard of for good reason. But Brent Peoples will probably be there again, as he was last year. And as a mild stalker of Brent Peoples, I might have to go.
What about tours? Are you going to tour this year?
There are some plans to try to tour, but I don't have anything totally booked yet.
Which band do you think you might tour with?
Glutton for Punishment. I know our guitarist. We're going to be recording an album in a couple of months. And I know that our guitarist is very, very serious about trying to get the band on the road. And then my other band, Septus Semic, has gotten a bunch of offers to play not only all over the country, but some offers to play in Europe as well. So we're definitely considering some of that stuff. Can't do everything, but if we can, obviously, it would be awesome to do some traveling. So I don't know. I'd love to go to more cons, but a lot of my vacation time from work, a lot of my expenses that I can afford to put into traveling and stuff goes toward music stuff and performing around the country. So
I got all my stuff ready today to go to WonderCon at the end of March, and I'm really excited about it. I've never been. Normally, at the beginning of the year, I try to go to Emerald City Comic Con every year. Last year, when I went, I got to meet some of the guys that listen to our podcast or people that we interact with a lot now. Guys like Chris Amundsen, I had never met him before, and we talked a little bit on the message boards and, on the Facebook pages.
You and I have met. You and I have never met.
You could have happened if you would have just like pulled over that one day, driving through Utah,
If you would have come down to the show, yeah.
We're going to find a way one day. But, and I met John Hooser, who does the Hoodoo TV stuff, and honestly, like that.
I think he's watching. What's up?
Hi, guys. And as I was going to say, it's actually like a huge treat to get to meet people that we interact with. Meeting those guys and hanging out with them and getting like tag along with them last year was probably like the highlight of the convention for me, just because I went the year before, didn't know a single person, and just walked around for 3 days by myself, just like a loser. So, looking forward to WonderCon. I couldn't do Emerald City just because my son's birthday falls over the weekend of it. And if I'm going to go, I really want to go the whole time. And my wife and I were just like, I was like, I could go, but she was like, yeah, you probably shouldn't go. Just go somewhere else. So WonderCon, down the street from Disneyland. So we'll see, like how it goes. But I'm really excited. Hopefully, there's people on the Facebook page or on Valiant fans that I can meet and talk with, because it's cool to get to do that. So definitely looking forward to that. And then in September, there's Salt Lake Comic Con, which has very little to do with comic books, but I'll be at that to meet like the 2 comic book creators I get. It's mostly like a pop culture convention.
Yeah, I mean, all we get for cons up here are, so little that you barely get any big names. I mean, we got Patrick Gleason because he lives in the Twin Cities. Dan Jurgens, I want to say, also lives here in Minnesota. So he shows up to a lot of that stuff. I guess he's involved in Minnesota Fan Fest, which they're trying to ramp that up as another con here in Minnesota. But other than that, I mean, there's Spring Con and Fall Con. Spring Con is 2 days and Fall Con is 1 day. And then Minnesota Fan Fest I haven't gotten to go to yet, so I don't really know what that's like. But I know Fan Fest is trying to be kind of like what Salt Lake Comic Con is, because they're trying to bring in the big names. They try, like Jason David Frank, they try to get, people that are involved in TV. I guess I shouldn't say he's like, a huge name or anything, but as far as, fandom and stuff that happens here in Minnesota, he's pretty big. But, yeah, we don't get a lot of that stuff. I mean, I did meet Brent Peoples for the first time at SpringCon here in Minnesota. John Bevins is the current artist on Spread at Image, which is an amazing book, and he's from here in Minnesota. Elliot Rahal, also a Minnesotan. So usually the people that I get to meet are the Minnesotan creators. Other than that, not a lot of people come here. Like even the big names that show up is mostly because they're from here.
Yeah, I would say that comic book list of creators is probably more than Salt Lake does. It's so crazy to me, like how little they care about like that part of it, but they want to call themselves a comic book convention, like I usually get to meet like Ryan Otley. I'm a big Otley fan. I've known the guy forever. And this year they had Mike Zeck and John Beatty and Joe Rubenstein. And that was about it, I mean, it was just really, really small, the amount of people that they had. But, I mean, like I said, their whole thing is like celebrities. Like they're going to have Carl Urban here, which
Sure
doesn't do me good. I'm not going to go meet celebrities. I don't want to pay the money. And
I would want to meet Carl Urban if it was free.
He's badass as Dread, though.
Yeah. Oh, he was so the perfect guy for that.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions? Oh, there was one thing that we could talk about, because you're not watching the live chat. Anybody that's watching this, the person chatting in the live chat is me, which is part of why you see me looking away all the time, because I'm looking at my other monitor where the chat is happening. So Josh doesn't get to see that.
I don't.
But there was a question from David, who's interacting and watching, about whether or not that we knew anything of Rye plans in 2018. Both Moose and I kind of agreed that we haven't really seen anything. Have you heard anything about a 2018 Rye release or any new titles involving him?
When I was at Emerald City last year, Matt Kent made a comment about how he had just tons and tons of stuff written, like in a notebook that pertained to 4001 and Rye. But it's another one of those cases where like the character's just kind of sitting on the shelf, and why aren't they doing something with Rye? Rye had a great ending to what was going on with him at the moment, which was him toppling father. He would crash the earth with Galad. And then we got that really lackluster Rye History of the Valiant Universe one shot that really didn't do anything to push his story along. It just kind of retold the last 5 years of Valiant history. I feel like there's a lost opportunity there, man, with that whole timeline and the characters that are in it. I mean, there's so much that you could do now with Rye on Earth and him mixing it up with Bloodshot in the future and War Mother or Shadow Man.
Well,
I mean, there's
speaking of which, we know that Bloodshot just revealed that he's stuck in 4002. So there's been talk about the fact that the 4002 AD Bloodshot is going to end up in Bloodshot Salvation, and that could very well lead to some Rye sightings and other things. But obviously, then he would just be a side character / background character in Bloodshot story. But as far as getting a Rye story, I definitely haven't heard anything.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm hoping, because I just feel like they did everything right with the character. You know, everybody was liking it. I mean, I don't know what the sales were like at the time, and I know that plays a huge factor in things. But man, I mean, 4001 was a good crossover. The one shots were good. The Rye series that dealt with the previous incarnations of Rye was awesome. You know, but I just feel like that was one of those things where they should have kept going. But again, I don't know what sales are like. I can't sit there and be like the guy that knows everything, but give us more Rye. Maybe that's the thing that they launch later this year. Rye is the kind of thing that if they relaunch that book, they do it next year in March, because again, ton of potential. They want to do a very big relaunch every March. Maybe that's a book that they do next year, but man, they need to get going on it because that character is awesome. I love Rye.
Yeah, hopefully we get more Clayton Crane art on it. Anyway, do we have other questions? I feel like we have quite a few more.
There was a question. I feel like this one is right up your alley.
Uh-oh.
And it was from Twitter user Carcosa, Alex K. Casa. And he says, does Bloodshot cut his toenails with a chainsaw? I feel like you're the guy that could answer this question.
Wait, does Bloodshot what?
Cut his toenails with a chainsaw.
Oh, I don't really think of Bloodshot as the kind of guy that, I would assume that he doesn't have to cut his toenails, right? Like,
you think the nanites just like shrink them down when they need to?
Yeah, or like they just don't let it grow. You know what I mean? It's like, plus, I mean, look at how his hair works when he transitions into normal Ray. He doesn't have like the lines in his hair, but as soon as he becomes Bloodshot, boom, those lines are back.
I was just about to ask you if you think that he ever needs to get his hair cut. And obviously, I think that's the answer right there. The nanites control everything, man.
Yeah, it's exactly the same as the toenails, fingernails, any of that stuff. I think that the nanites just take care of it. Now, though, we're kind of in a situation similar to the beginning of Bloodshot Reborn, obviously in a very different way, but his nanites have been turned off, and that puts him in a really weird position. So he might have to start cutting his toenails, but it would just be with a regular toenail cutter.
Yeah,
or because he's a badass, you do it like a scissors or something.
Turned on, man.
What?
He might get some shaggy hair, a little bit of scruff. I hope for his sake, I hope he can grow better facial hair than I can. When
bearded Bloodshot would be awesome.
Turned on, or else he's gonna have like some weird like pubic looking facial hair, like just. I can't have that, okay?
Real men have beards.
Nice and clean,
Yeah.
Another question that came up, and I actually thought this one was a little interesting. Do you think that any of the Valiant characters are overpowered?
I think the only one that you could make the case for in the current Valiant universe is probably Divinity. Do you think of anybody else that you could make an argument of being overpowered?
In a weird way, one of them that was mentioned was Armstrong. Because Armstrong, the Antipater brothers all operate very differently when it comes to pain.
Yeah.
Like Galad takes damage. He's got a bit of a healing factor, but he can die. He can be killed and he goes to his place, But like Armstrong can take like arrows in the eye. Like he could take an arrow in both eyes and still just operate like he's okay. You just can't see, I think is like, man, like what would it even take to kill that dude? Like he could just take like a shit ton of damage. And he's not even necessarily like a giant warrior. Like, I mean, I feel like that kind of damage threshold belongs better on Galad, But, one thing I actually think about
more interesting if he can die, though. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, very true. One thing I think about with this argument that Valiant does perfectly right is Bloodshot. Bloodshot is definitely not an overpowered character.
Yeah.
Because Bloodshot so many times relies upon replacing protein in his body to feed the nanites to recreate them, to grow back limbs or to heal his wounds. Whereas, a character like Wolverine, can get set on fire and like 12 panels later, he's just a guy with no clothes, but he's healed up like perfectly, man. Even his hair. So it's like, I feel like Divinity might be, but he doesn't fight. We've had the conversation about how he's pretty much a pacifist.
Yeah. very much.
But but he can do whatever he can do with time, which is awesome. But I feel like the Valiant characters necessarily aren't like overpowered. They do kind of exist as if superheroes were outside my window or your window, what would they be like? They're a little more grounded in reality, just a little bit, Maybe like Harada, because he could just make anyone's head explode if he wanted to, he could just kill every single thing in his path.
Well, then you have to say Pete, right?
But Pete's not as like, well, Pete's probably more unhinged, but he's not that route. He doesn't do that.
But he's more powerful, right? Raw power.
He's probably he probably needs a few more years to really be like Harada's true equal. Because Harada has experience.
Right.
Really just lacks, especially after like Renegades, where he didn't do anything.
Well, the whole time, he spent his childhood locked up in an asylum, and then when he busted out, he faced off against Harada. So that was the only experience he had when Harada already had a lifetime of experience behind him. Then he went into hiding and hung out in space for years. And then he came back, and all he really did was shave his beard and cut his hair with his powers. And other than that, and he threatened Major Palmer. So didn't really do a whole lot other than that. Any other questions, though?
You know who I think is actually underpowered, though, because of that conversation? The Hardcore. Because, they're fairly tough when it comes to, your regular, Psyot, but they seem to be, running scared a bit, whenever Harada shows up. Because they're just like, oh, shit, Harada's here. Don't engage him. Even though I feel like they're pretty much made. They're made to fight Harada, but they can't do anything to Harada. So I always feel like those dudes, whether you like them or not, whether you agree with what they do or not, they need a bit of a power upgrade. They need some wet tech or something in their head that makes it so Harada doesn't just pull their brains out. He did in one of them in Bloodshot and the Hardcore. They just don't really seem like a threat to him. And I do think that Harada needs a bit of a threat. Whether it's Pete or maybe Exo or somebody.
That's what was so great about that Imperium arc with Divinity.
Yeah, we need more characters that can knock Harada around, just to make it a bit of a fair fight almost, for everybody else.
Really good question. Travis just asked, what characters deserve their own Zero issues? That's tough. I would say the entire Red Brigade, but they basically already got them in Divinity 3 because each issue had a kind of a Zero issue for each one of those characters. Characters that need a Zero.
Gunslinger. That's Major Palmer needs something like that. But I also just think they need to do a little bit more. I'm sure they're going to do way more with Hardcore this year, especially with Harbinger Wars coming up.
I hope so.
So I know that's been a thing. I've always been they need to do more with them. Maybe the Armorines, but I don't know if you could give them enough time. In a Zero issue.
Yeah, the Armorines are characters I'd like to see come back. Moose.
What about Deathmate?
See, I think that we got all the information that we really needed that could be a Zero issue for her in the Bloodshot Island story. And I would say a similar answer to Moose suggested War Mother for a Zero issue. And the only reason that I would say no to that is that we essentially got that in the 4001 AD War Mother tie-in. That was essentially what that was. And then the War Mother mini just kind of, built on that. But I would call that one shot essentially a Zero issue for her. Not a ton of characters really pop up in my head because I know there are a lot of people who are going to say Betamax.
Maybe one
because everybody loves Betamax.
One person would.
At least one. I feel like more than one. But yeah, the other characters, the other main characters in the universe that you would normally think of as having a Zero issue probably have already had one. I don't really know. I might have said Magic to that question before Bloodshot Salvation started, but now we're really getting to see her history play out in a more interesting way than I think a Zero issue would offer. So I like that, and wouldn't want that taken away. I don't know. I would like to see maybe if Casimir ever comes back and just kind of shows up. I would love to get like whatever story that ends up being, and then after that, get a zero issue about what he was doing while he was gone. I think that would be cool.
My honorable mention on this whole thing of zero issues would be the little deformed version of Armstrong from Rafer's Archer and Armstrong run.
Gub Gub.
Gub Gub. Yeah, we need a Gub Gub zero issue.
He just needs his own, like, it doesn't even need to be a zero issue. We just need some, like, random Gub Gub one-shots every once in a while, just for funsies. And you could do like a topsy-turvy version where everybody, like that episode of King of the Hill, where it was all from Boomhauer's perspective, and everybody else sounded like Boomhauer, and he just sounded like he was speaking completely eloquently. Do the same thing with Gub Gub, where everybody else can only say Gub Gub, and he gets to, what is wrong with you, nincompoops? Chris from Calgary asked if Woody would do the Tide Pod challenge. I think that he would get someone to bet him that he wouldn't do it, take their money, and then leave without doing it. That's what I think he would do.
I think he would trick Quantum into doing it somehow. Just out of spite.
Yeah. Or he would like somehow torture Quantum with it. Yes, I agree with that. That's a pretty good answer to that one. As far as zero issues, Travis voted Cheap Jack. Now, somebody's gonna have to tell me who Cheap Jack is.
Cheap Jack.
Yeah. Okay. Going to the chat. Travis, who is that? Hopefully he can tell me who that is.
Sounds familiar. I'm blanking.
It does sound familiar. Chris from Calgary agrees that your answer was good. Josh, no love for my answer. I mean, I thought I had a pretty good answer, but apparently it wasn't.
I loved your answer, okay? I loved it.
Good. I'm glad. Cheap Jack was the guy from Secret Weapons who told Owen that the stuff that he was conjuring was his. He wasn't stealing it from anybody else.
Oh, okay.
So, sure, I'd like to know more about that character. I can get behind that suggestion for a zero issue, definitely. David asked if
they could do one shots about all those characters. I'm sure eventually we'll get one about all the kids.
Yeah, because we got Owen, or we're getting Owen. We got oh my god, I'm blanking on her name now. Nikki. Oh, there you go. Nikki Finch. We got hers. I would be surprised if we don't get one for Avi. And then I don't know if we've ever gotten a Livewire zero issue. If we've ever really known. We've known little bits about her before she worked for Harada, but not a whole lot. So maybe a Livewire zero. Let me see here. Oh yeah. Any other questions from? I know Tor had asked some questions. Do you have those?
I don't have access to them because I'm on my phone.
Oh, you son of a! I'll check.
Tor wanted to know like what every favorite everything was.
Yeah, that's like, true. That's going to be tough to do.
Non-human. And we love you, Tor. Let's just get
that's true.
But I don't have the question in front of me at the moment.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. It's taken me a while to scroll through the Get Valiant group. I mean, it's so active and such great members posting awesome content all the time.
While you look for that, I know Moose had another question concerning the our thoughts on like the 1 in 250 cover for Shadow Man.
Oh,
because that thing is sweet.
Yes.
So for those who don't know, 1 in 250 variant for Shadow Man #1 when it releases in March. It's got a glow in the dark skull on a metal cover. I'm kind of mixed on that stuff because I haven't really I would take a metal cover if I could ever get one, but I just can't hunt down those covers. They're way too expensive. There's no way to get those ones cheap. But holy shit, man, I'm kind of a sucker for like the glow in the dark stuff. And the first thing I thought of when I saw that it was glow in the dark was that I remember when I was a kid, there's an issue of Ghost Rider that's just his flaming skull and it glowed in the dark. And I had like 10 of them and I had tacked them all to my wall, so I just had a whole bunch of Ghost Rider skulls that would glow in the dark at night because I was a creepy kid. And I mean, like, oh man, I'd love to have it. It's so cool. I just can't do it. There's not even a shop in Salt Lake that would order 250 covers.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't get that. I couldn't get that
And
here. I mean,
if they did, they wouldn't charge me good. Like, there's somebody on like Valiant Comics fans on Facebook who gets those things at like a steal. I want to say it's like Frankie Lloyd, who like his shop just like gives him a really great deal on them. And I wish there was a shop like that here.
yeah, I
Because
would have to
I'm
pay
really
for
friendly
all
with
the
the shop
issues.
owners here, but nobody would do that. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, David has been asking questions that we haven't gotten to about Psylords. I know that's a touchy subject for you, Josh.
never happening. That's the official statement. Valiant will never do it. They're just going to run another teaser in this year's Free Comic Book Day book.
It'll be a one-page teaser.
Psylords 2018, and then next year they'll do the same thing. It's just going to be like they're running joke against the community because
until we actually get to the real year 4001, and then they'll release it.
Yeah. Well, you know what though is like kind of a bummer. Like I hope they do it. I really do hope they do it. I mean, like I give people shit about it because it's almost turning into like a thing where like it feels like it won't happen.
Do you think it'll come out of eternity?
Maybe that's the Dice Heart book. Who knows?
Yeah.
But the thing is like what those characters are in the old Valiant universe. While it's not a great book, I love the concept because they're the hardcore of the future. They've like evolved. When the hardcore leave Earth, they basically become the Psylords, and they're awesome. The book's not great. There's some issues that are good, but I feel like Valiant's got a very impressive track record for revamping their old characters. I mean, look at Rexo.
Yeah.
Rexo wasn't special on Harbinger 3 and Secret Weapons. He's pretty awesome.
David had asked.
I don't think you could look at any of the characters now and be like, oh man, they failed. The older version's way better. Like, I don't think so.
David was asking if we thought that Psylords could come out of eternity. I think that's a possibility. I've always thought of it as being something that would be somehow related to Harada, so maybe coming out of like Imperium or something.
To me, it would seem like it has something to do with the Psyots or the people who are against the Psyots. But I mean, again, going back to what the concept originally was, and it's been hinted at with something involving Exo Manowar. I mean, who knows, man? But I just wish, like, I know Valiant doesn't put books out until they really have a concept nailed down. And maybe it's one of those things where they've thought they've had it, but then when like the scripts have come in, or maybe when like people have pitched it, it just hasn't worked. But it's another thing where it's like that's something we don't have, and I feel like if they did it, it would be good, just because I feel like Valiant's record, I think when there's going to be something, you can be like, yeah, it'll probably be good because usually Valiant stuff is good.
Okay, a couple rapid fire questions from Tor. We'll try to do quick. Favorite Anipada brother?
Oh man, that's impossible, man. Like, because I feel like if I was Galad.
Yeah, it's Galad.
I would name my kid Galad if I could have another kid. Or would I do Aram? God damn it, But Galad is awesome.
Yeah, he would be my favorite. And then favorite Rye. I'm gonna immediately go with Aboto. I mean,
yes. He is the Sith Rye in his goddamn laser whips. He's so awesome. He's such an awesome concept to be like gone in like 2 issues, man. Bring him back. Give me that guy 0 issue, okay? That's a 0 issue right there.
Oh, give me more Aboto, yeah.
And then an ongoing, because he's cool enough that you could go back and like
just
tell his story.
You could go back in time to the future, right? Go back to the future and do Marty McFly and Aboto.
Yeah, and you know what, man? Like, get Cafu on it, because like
you just completely missed that entire joke, and it bothers me. That was funny, and you should have laughed. No, I agree, though. Cafu doing an Aboto book would be amazing. That would be like one of the most badass things ever, on par with the most badass Bloodshot stuff that we've gotten. So I would be 100% on board with that. He is the coolest Rye. Yeah, do we have any more questions? We might have gotten through them all.
I don't have anything written down, man.
Okay. Well, the other questions
Bruce, you got any more questions?
the other questions that Tor had were, I mean, favorite psiots, favorite robot. I mean, that's just way too tough to get into, you know, because the psiot.
There's Psyot. Oh man, that's hard.
That's impossible. There's just like billions of them, so you'd have to go like, you know, I don't know, something like it would get tough.
Darpan. The thing is about that question is there's a lot of like really cool psyops, and if you can look past like, even like some of the character flaws, you can make a hell of an argument for how rad Pete is. Faith. I mean, hell, I used to, you know, and speaking of like, I know I've made this comment about bad guys that get killed. Hidden Moon, awesome character. He was an awesome psyop. He's dead.
Who was no, you know what? We're not even going to get into it. We can't do it. It's too much. Get out of here. Okay, it doesn't look like we have a lot more questions. The other thing I had mentioned earlier that we had started doing this thing where we were talking about some stuff that's not Valiant at the end of the episodes. We have no books to review, so this has been really fun. I'm actually
that's what this is called. Get non-Valiant.
Get non-Valiant, yeah. Or get Valianter and just go beyond Valiant and still be Valiant. I don't know. But I'm impressed that we filled like almost an entire hour without any books to review. Stoked about that.
Questions from the fans, man. Like
I love it. I love it. We should get more fan questions. I also am really liking the activity in the chat. That gives us stuff to talk about, and the people in there are really cool. But the thing that I really been wanting to talk about, Josh and I have talked about this a little bit between ourselves. And we also talked about it, I believe, either I or both of us were on with Hoosier on Hoodoo TV, and we were talking with him too, because I know he's also a fan. One of my favorite non-Valiant books going on right now is Kill or Be Killed from Image by Brubaker and Phillips. That series is amazing. Anybody who is not reading that, I really highly recommend it. It's this really weird combination of super, super down to earth, gritty kind of noir feel, but it also has this like weird, trippy, supernatural tinge to it. And then there's also this like weird kind of coming of age feel to it because of the way the narrator kind of deals with his issues. It feels kind of like a coming of age thing. And yeah, I mean, it's such a crazy book. I guess I don't want to get too crazy deep into spoilers, but I am okay kind of spoiling it because, so just let people know if you haven't read any Kill or Be Killed, we're probably going to say some stuff that's already happened. But
they're 15 issues in on the book, you know. So I mean, I feel like if we're gonna explain the book a little bit, here's what the book is.
Here, I got a request real quick. Next week is going to be episode 150 of VCR. So anyone who doesn't listen to Valiant Comics Review, that's another podcast who reviews Valiant Comics. So if you guys are interested in Valiant Comics, if you're interested in hearing different perspectives on those books, definitely check out Valiant Comics Review. They're, like I said, about to do episode 150. Obviously, they've been doing it for a long time. They know what they're doing. So
awesome podcast too.
Very much so. Really cool guys involved in that. Anyway, back to Kill or Be Killed. Where are you at with it, Josh?
Oh, I've read probably the first year of it. You know, I read about 11 or 12. I had meant to try to read through it all again because it's been a while since I read it. Because I mean, I just get a little busy and books get misplaced. And I mean, if you could look behind me, you would just see boxes and boxes of comics. And sometimes when I get them in, they just go in a box, and I'm like, oh, what box did I put that in? Really, only my Valiant stuff is organized. So Kill or Be Killed. It's about a guy who, you know, shit happens and he tries to kill himself and he lives. Okay. And in doing so, two things happen. One, I think he tries to throw himself off of a roof and he gets extensive nerve damage. He doesn't feel pain. So like if people beat up on him, he doesn't feel it. He takes damage. Like he still could get like his lip busted open or his nose broke or something like that. He just wouldn't feel it. The second part of it, and I still feel like, you know, at this point, you don't really know if it's in his head or if something has happened that brought this forward, but the character is haunted by a demon that wants him to kill people. And to me, it feels like a weird, tiny supernatural version of like Death Wish, because he's very much a vigilante. Because his concept is just like kill the people that deserve to be killed. Like a more realistic version of the Punisher. He's not just going around killing like 100 people at like a mafia get together. He's a little bit more selective. One thing I feel like in talking about it, and I read a lot of Brubaker and Sean Phillips' work. I follow all their books. Elizabeth Breitweiser is their colorist.
Yeah.
And I feel like Eric and I always talk about colorists on Get Valiant, how important we think their work is. And I think that, good colorist really shines through on a book. She's a great example of like a good colorist and what they can do on a book. And I believe that they used to be colored by Dave Stewart. There's nothing wrong with him. He's a good colorist, but I think that Elizabeth is actually part of their trio. They're a trio. They're gonna try and always work together. Brubaker and Sean Phillips have worked together for a long time on a lot of books. An awesome book. It's really violent. It's more violent than anything Valiant does.
It is pretty violent. That's true.
So the most violent book I guess is like Bloodshot. Like this has got Bloodshot beat. Like this is like. It's pretty gritty. It's really brutal, but it's really well done. I mean, if you've read Criminal or Fatale or Velvet, any of those books, if you liked Captain America that Brubaker wrote, I think like you'd really like this. I think they've got 3 trade paperbacks out right now.
Yeah.
It got optioned for a movie,
True.
And I want to say it was by someone associated with the John Wick movies. So like, if that movie happens, it will be gnarly.
Yeah, it'll definitely be brutal if they turn it into a movie. I think that
it's so violent though. So so if you read it, maybe you don't want to give it a go, but I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't say if you have kids, you probably wouldn't want to leave the book sitting around for them to get into, unless you let your kids get into super gory stuff. I guess that's your call as a parent.
One last thing real quick about those books is I believe that, and this was something that he did with, and that he's been doing with Kill or Be Killed, but a lot of the issues have like the little essays in the back, either written by Brubaker or by somebody else talking about like things that relate to the book. So I think like with Brubaker on Kill or Be Killed, there's essays about like 1970s like revenge flicks and crime movies and things like that, or books about it. So you don't just get like a comic book story. You get a little bit of other stuff that you can read. It's a pretty like complete piece every month, if you will. There's really nothing like it.
Yeah.
So
I think my favorite thing about it is the tone of the narration. The way that Dylan, the main character, kind of talks to you through the captions is really, really, really well done. It's so organic, and it feels so much like you're actually having a conversation with this guy that it's a lot more engaging than a lot of other comics, just for that very reason. Clearly not engaging enough to keep you involved, Josh. Jeez.
I was trying to see if I could locate my trade.
No, it is really good. Definitely something that I recommend people pick up. I would say my best way to indicate how much I like it is not only have I been buying the single issues, I've been buying the trades as they come out too, because I know that I'm going to continue rereading this book. So yeah, I really wanted to talk about that. I'm glad that you enjoy it. It sounds like pretty much about as much as I do, Josh. And hopefully anybody out there watching or listening to this later will give that book a chance. If it sounds like it's up your alley. If you're a big Faith fan and not really into Bloodshot, you're probably not going to be super into Kill or Be Killed. But I do recommend it for, I do recommend it for people who like anything, noir, mystery, suspense, thrillers, violence, those kinds of things. You're definitely going to be into that book.
If you are a big Faith fan and you do read it, maybe save Faith for after you read Kill or Be Killed, just so you can get back to like
uplifting, bring you back up.
Place in life,
So now what I'm trying to figure out is what's coming out next week.
I have no idea. I tried looking up today and I couldn't find anything.
I'm gonna try looking it up right now. So this is cool, and I can't even like edit it out. Because we're doing this.
But that's great. That's what's so great about the live episodes is that
You get to see me
anything
being inept.
goes. Anything goes on the live episode, man.
Yeah, man. Oh my god. And of course my computer doesn't want to work, so might not be able to pull that up there. I wanted to. I don't know what's coming. Oh, what is that? Where is that from? No, show her the whole thing. You gotta do a better job of getting that in frame.
So this was from I think it was from North Carolina Comic-Con or something like that. This is a card. This is the closest we're ever going to get to Ninjak versus the Valiant Universe.
No, pull it back. Put the whole thing in frame. Get the whole thing in frame, man. You got to pull it back.
I'm trying, man.
Further back.
And then back.
Yeah. No, not the back. Well, okay, the back is fine.
It's either this or the socks, man. I can show you the socks.
Yeah, I don't know if I need to see the socks. Unless you're wearing them, then I'll see the socks. I just want to see you wearing them.
Oh, they don't look great on my feet. I put a pair on, and they were so stretched out. I was like, you got to have girl legs to wear the Valiant socks. So if anyone who's got the Valiant socks hasn't opened them yet, just give them to your wife or something because they're not going to look good on your feet,
Oh, Chris from Calgary came with the rescue. Ninja K, which I'm assuming will be number 3, is going to be out next week. And EXO, which issue are we on with EXO? I don't
11.
even know.
It'll be issue 11.
Okay, so that actually gets us pretty close to the end of this current. It will be 11 because 10 was the issue with the introduction of those
bounty hunters.
The bounty hunters. Yeah, done by with art by Renato Gatiss, and now we're going to be getting into the actual arc with them coming to Gorin and trying to get rid of Arik and see how that leads to him going back to Earth. So, one
thing that's actually really exciting about this next arc of Exo Manowar is that Ryan Bodenheim, who was doing a lot of the interlocking covers for Exo Manowar, I think he's doing some of the pre-order editions for Bloodshot Salvation. He's an awesome artist, and some of those covers are great. He's going to be jumping in to do interiors. So I'm really excited to see what he can do because I love those covers he's done. Some of those Exo Manowar covers that he's done are so cool and so energetic, So I'm really excited. I'm okay to see what's happening with it, Let's see what he can do.
I'm excited. I'm hoping that this will be the best arc so far of EXO. That's honestly not that I'm getting myself all worked up just to be disappointed, but I do have I kind of anticipate that this might be more up my alley than what the rest of the series has been. It's not like any of it's been bad. It's just not really been my style per se. And I feel like the series is moving more in a direction that I want to read. And speaking of series moving in a direction I want to read, that's been Ninja K the entire time so far. I feel like we've gotten so much more than 2 issues from Ninja K because I feel like Christos Gage has done such a good job of giving us his vision of the character and his vision for how he wants to talk about the character and the types of stories he wants to tell. He's done such a good job of conveying that with those first 2 issues that this feels like I said, it's already been longer running. So issue 3 is something I'm extremely excited for. I'm really excited for the one shot coming up that they're going to do about, I believe it's Ninja G. And then after that, after this arc is done, we get that new arc with the Coalition. So that's a title that honestly, at this point, may be my favorite Valiant book, even over Bloodshot Salvation. Even though Bloodshot Salvation is amazing right now, but it's really tough to beat Ninja K.
I think I said this last time. I think right now, even given where Exo Manowar is, I think Exo Manowar is the best-selling Valiant book right now. 10K an issue, and that's without any kind of knowledge of what the pre-order editions do. Sure. Really strong right now.
Yeah.
So I think going back to a question that we were discussing, what could Valiant do in 2018 to be very successful? I think is keep the ongoing strong. I think if Shadow Man can come out of the gates running, sell a lot of issues, get a lot of people excited for it. That would be huge, man. I think that I'm hoping that we're going to get a lot more ongoing books and a lot less miniseries and one shots this year. Just
I
because
will
I think
say,
like I'm just way more into that style of storytelling, I guess, for me.
I love the idea of miniseries. I think we've gotten a lot of really good miniseries. I think the Faith mini was awesome. The ongoing ended up being really good too. And then, of course, speaking of Faith, Faith in the Future Force, I think was a little bit of a misstep. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't nearly as good as the rest of Faith, and it also wasn't nearly as good as a lot of other, minis that have been done. The perfect example of what can be great about a mini is Secret Weapons. But what I was going to say is, I think a great key to success for Valiant in 2018 is a Secret Weapons ongoing. The other thing is bringing Dysart back. I think that he had a voice that you don't really get in comics in general, and certainly if you don't get it from other publishers, you're also not getting it from Valiant, because no publisher is really doing what Dysart did and speaking in the same voice that he does, and bringing the issues in the way that he did, and kind of tying politics and philosophy and a lot of things in. And I would love to see more of that. I love being able to read a comic book and actually feel like I'm learning something, or at least being challenged to think about how I view the world. Yeah, I think that's really valuable, not only from a comic book perspective, but definitely it is valuable from a comic book perspective. And he also told bombastic, action-packed stories at the same time. So if we can get more of that, I'll definitely be happy. And yeah, more Secret Weapons. But
Along that
yeah,
note,
more ongoings.
I would like to see Robert Venditti do some more about it, because
Oh my God,
I
yes.
don't really care too much for his DC work. I don't have a desire to read any more about Hal Jordan, but I enjoy the hell out of his Valiant work. Like, it's just one of those things where I can't follow that guy from company to company because I don't care about those characters a lot. I feel like I've read enough Green Lantern to last me for the rest of my life. Nobody's gonna get me to read that book again. But man, I feel like that dude just couldn't do me wrong. With Valiant, he just did a lot of fun stuff, a lot of fun stories. They're like good action books. The human moments that Venditti could weave into a story were always just really nice and thoughtful. And then you get some really good action. So I would love to see more of him. Just because, people liked him. He did 50 issues of Exo Manowar.
Exo
Get
was
that guy back.
amazing, and his run on Wrath of the Eternal Warrior, I think, is very underrated. But yeah, we've been rambling, and
real quick, Valiant needs to get fucking Ninjak versus the Valiant Universe out sometime this year. Please,
that's a big key to 2018 being successful for Valiant, is releasing the shit that they've
have it
been
be
saying.
really good.
Yeah, actually releasing shit. That would be the way. Releasing Ninjak versus the Valiant Universe, and then giving us actual concrete casting news. The whole is Vin Diesel going to play Bloodshot? I have no idea. What are the odds that he's going to play Bloodshot? I wish that I could answer that question. Hopefully, we'll get answers like that this coming year. Like I said, I think that would. Not only would that bring new people in, I think that it would do a lot to kind of turn around the perception a lot of people have of Valiant right now. They take a lot of pride in the fact that their books, their single issues, are always on time. They're always on time. That's great, but there are a lot of things outside of the comics that have been promised and we haven't gotten. And I think that there are a lot of people, especially new people to the fan community, who are coming in because of these things that have been promised, who've been very disappointed because they haven't those promises haven't been delivered upon. So that's another key for success in 2018 for Valiant, is make sure that you actually get that shit out. Having said that, we've probably talked enough. Hopefully everybody who has watched and listened has enjoyed it. I really, really do want to again thank the people who are watching live. It's great if you want to watch or listen afterward. We really appreciate that as well. But it is really awesome to have people who are watching and interacting with us live. So thank you to you. Thank you, Josh, for a 67th episode of this show. I'm going to sign off. I'm Eric Baumgard.
I'm Josh Rathbun.
And I hope you all stay valiant.